Kishinev is known for the Kishinev Pogrom, so-called notorious known Kishinev Pogrom. Moreover, the word pogrom itself comes from the Russian word pogrom that became known in the world due to the Kishinev Pogrom of 1903. Till today, the first association to the word, to the name Kishinev and Bessarabia, especially in the Jewish world, the first association is Kishinev Pogrom, and the second association is Kishinev Pogrom, and even the third association is Kishinev Pogrom, and maybe only the fourth, the fifth is I don't know, Louis Milestone, who was born in Kishinev, or Mayor Dizingov, who was born in Bessarabia, and so on. So Kishinev Pogrom of 1903 is the notorious, the sad, the catastrophic event that created the image of Jewish Kishinev, of the city of pogrom, as the capital of anti-Semitism in the Russian Empire. At the same time, this image is not absolutely real, authentic, for Bessarabia was, maybe I would say, the less anti-Semitic region in the Russian imperial Pale of Settlement. So the Kishinev Pogrom was one of the latest pogroms of the whole pogrom wave of the late 19th century. So Kishinev and Bessarabia was maybe the most tolerant region in the whole Russian Empire. Not absolutely free of anti-Semitism, no, but the less anti-Semitic in comparison with the others, some other regions of the Russian Empire, that's for sure. Let's begin with the short background, the historical background. So the numbers we know for sure. The late 19th century, 1897, the Russian Empire organized a census of population. So the whole imperial census of population that shows to us that Kishinev in general has a population of about 100,000 people, and half of this population is Jewish. So almost 50,000 Jews lived here. Almost 50% of the whole Kishinev population was Jewish. So the second half was mixed Moldavian, Romanian, and Russian. That makes Kishinev the most Jewish city in the Russian Empire. In the large five of the Jewish cities, I'm not speaking about small towns of shtetls that could be 70% and 90% and 95% Jewish. I'm speaking right now about the larger cities. There was Warsaw that had more Jewish population. There was Odessa that had more Jewish population, and Vilnius today, that had more Jewish population in the terms of absolute numbers. But in the terms of percentage, no one city in the Russian Empire at the moment had more than these 49 and some percent. So Kishinev was the most Jewish city in the Russian Empire. And nevertheless, pogrom took part, the famous Kishinev Pogrom in 1903 took part here in this very Jewish and very tolerant city. So everything started here. So the pogrom broke up right here beginning from this church. When I'm speaking everything started here, I don't mean the whole pogrom process with all preparations to the pogrom, but the active phase started right here from the so-called Chufla church. It was a result of a long preparatory process of anti-Semitic propaganda in the newspapers, in the magazine Bessarabets, in the particular papers thrown to the just simple people. In February 1903, 2 months before pogrom broke out, a criminal case took place. So a Christian boy was killed. It was not a Christian baby, as in typical European blood libels, as it's usually said, the Christian babies killed for ritual Jewish purposes. Should I explain that blood libel has no relation to the Jewish tradition at all? So Jewish tradition doesn't use the baby's blood, the man blood, the blood in general. So it's never used in the Jewish tradition. It's unkosher to use blood, even if it's chicken's blood. But nevertheless, who gets inside the real reasons if it's possible to start a bloody libel? So a typical bloody libel took place. A Christian boy of like 12, 13 years old was killed. And very soon it was clear to everybody that it was just a typical criminal case inside the family. So he was killed by his own cousin and uncle not to share the legacy. So there was the very primitive story. But the anti-Semitic propaganda made a bloody libel of this story, of this case, telling that, look, it's a few weeks before the Jewish Pascha, the Passover, so he was killed for ritual purposes, for taking blood, for blah blah blah, for all this bloody stuff. That was the last stone, the last feeder. And everything started here in the morning of Christian Easter that coincided with one of the last days of the Jewish Passover. So they do not coincide every year, but 1903 was the year when the Jewish Passover started few days before the Orthodox Great Sunday, and the Great Sunday started with the Jewish pogroms somewhere here around the Chufla, the Saint Tyrone church. Today it has a status of urban monastery. Then it was one of many churches that stayed here on the outskirts of the Kishinev, of the city. So rather far from the center. Today it's very central part of the city. Then it was outskirts on the city border. So you can compare the today's view of the monastery, of the church, with the old image taken in 1870s. You can see that the shape of the domes is changed a bit, but it's still recognizable. So this image is taken from here, from the so-called region Caucasus, Kafkaz. And this Kafkaz had a mixed population that was mostly Jewish. It was not a kind of Jewish ghetto. Kishinev never had a Jewish ghetto in the European medieval sense of the word, except the war times. So when Nazis founded here a ghetto. So it never had a purely Jewish district where Jews lived and were not allowed to live outside and Christians were not allowed to live inside. So we never had something like this. We always had a mixture of Jewish and non-Jewish and Christian population, both in the lower town. So the pogrom itself started somewhere here all around. So it was a Christian church, it was a Jewish neighborhood all around, it was a free space, a sort of square surrounded by the small shops, mostly Jewish shops. So this crazy, drunk mob started from here, going to the Jewish neighborhoods and Jewish shops all around here. So the next stop, the next point we should show you is the private house belonging at the moment in the beginning of the 20th century to Karl Schmidt, the Kishinev mayor, the best Kishinev mayor in the Kishinev history ever. So that's known to everybody. The person who used to be a mayor for almost quarter century, 24 years in a row, he was re-elected and re-elected anew. So that was the Kishinev big boss at the moment when the pogrom took place, and it's possible to say that he was the only one of the city authorities who reacted to the event normally, as a normal, noble person. So he was the only one who tried to prevent the beginning pogromic mood in the public. He was the only one in the authorities who tried to stop the pogrom in the very beginning when it already started. He was the one who refused to re-elect for the next period, for the next several years, for being a mayor, with the reason, I can't be a mayor in the city if I couldn't prevent this catastrophic pogrom, this catastrophic event here. So the building itself is a part of the pogrom story, as we have some mentioning that Schmidt himself personally here saved some people, some several Jewish families here during the pogrom, and several Jewish merchants brought him something, the most precious things, or money, or something, we don't know what particularly, but that's not a urban legend. I am collecting the urban legends, and some of them are related to the pogrom, but that's the urban legend, the mythology that has the background in reality and factography. That neighborhood had a mixed population of Jews and non-Jews as well. So all the central Kishinev was mixedly Jewish and non-Jewish. So Schmidt, who himself was German, whose wife was a Polish, was very good to Jews in general, so we know it in all his cadences. He was very good to Jews, very tolerant to Jewish merchants, to Jewish population, to Jewish business. I'm not hinting to any corruption. I mean that business is the background for the city living, for the city being. So he was very good to Jewish business as well to any other. So no prejudices against Jewish lives, against Jewish businesses. The next site related to the story of the Kishinev pogrom is here, so-called Asiatskaya Asian Street number 13. Today it's Romanian street. That's the point, the address described in details, both in the protocols, the judge official protocols on one hand, and on the other hand, that's the point described very well by the known Russian writer and publicist Vladimir Korolenko. What's interesting in the whole story of the Kishinev pogrom is that the pogrom itself is very well documented. It's covered with the documents, official, half the official, non-official, private journalist investigations, official judge investigations took place after the pogrom. We have the whole set of photos showing the victims, the wounded people, the buildings that have the traces of the pogrom, the broken windows and so on. So that's one of the examples of the most described in details, and at the same time one of the most terrible episodes of the Kishinev pogrom. So Russian reading people can easily read the essay by Vladimir Korolenko, Asiatskaya Street number 13, and I'm pretty sure it's translated to German and, as far as I remember, to English as well. So if you can find it and read it, that's a very touching and scareful documental story of the pogrom, written with the fresh impressions a few weeks after the pogrom itself. That was a house with 7 flats, 7 rooms, and 8 Jewish families who lived here. And here, from the 49 victims of the pogrom, quite a few of them were killed here. like 3 or 4. So one of the pogrom mobs activated here and killed several people here, and the story is described in details. So Korolenko was describing the house itself and how minute by minute how it took place. I'm not absolutely sure, I should be sincere, I'm not absolutely sure that's the same building. It has the same number 13. According to how Korolenko was describing it, a long corner building with a small shop in the corner, probably there is a probability that's this next building that is staying there in the corner. Maybe this is that one. Maybe one of other buildings on the same street that don't exist today, but you can imagine it's the same, if not the same, if not the authentic building itself. It's very similar to that described by Korolenko. Jews were trying to hide of the mob there on the upper side and didn't succeed and were killed there. Imagine the policemen who were just staying or sitting there at the corner and looking at the mob and looking how people were killing people and doing nothing. Imagine a Christian Orthodox priest who just passed by somewhere here, not so far from here, not right on this street, but the next street here, who tried to stop the mob and didn't succeed. Imagine this crazy mob itself, drunk of wine and drunk of blood, killing the men, the women, the small kids. Try to put yourself to the place of those Jews who were trying to hide. Imagine the morning of this day before the mob was coming here, when Jews were waiting for the decision. It was the second day of the pogrom itself. So the first pogrom events already took place, but they were not so terrible as at the second day. So it was April the 7th already. So on April the 7th, in the morning, all the city was silent, waiting. There were rumors that there should be some decision from the authorities to stop the pogroms, to stop the pogromers, the mobs. And Jews were praying and waiting for this decision, and no decision there was. And the mob was waiting. Could they continue killing, drinking, pogroming, or should they be stopped by the policemen? When everybody understood that no decision, there was no official order, no official stop, it was maybe the most terrible moment, even in comparison with the killings itself, when no hope in the future. We are staying next to today it's the Jewish Cultural Center, and historically, at the period we are talking about, that was one of numerous Kishinev synagogues. synagogue Limneria, or woodcutters synagogue, built in 1835. That's the synagogue that was not the largest one and not the great, so-called great synagogue. The great synagogue was not so far from here, but lower. It was one of the most central synagogues, actually. That's why here started the funeral procession to the Jewish cemetery. You can compare the historical image, the historical photo. You can see this crowd of people who came to participate in this funeral ceremony, with the today's view of the reconstructed synagogue devoted to the Jewish cultural center, and the synagogue as well. The synagogue found its place here in the Jewish complex. So the funeral ceremony you can see on the photo is not a funeral of the people, of these 49 Jews who were killed during the pogrom or died a few days later. This is the funeral ceremony of the unkoshered, desecrated Torah scrolls. For Judaism, it's very crucial. For Torah scroll is a special, specific artifact that should be kosher, that should be untouched and for sure undamaged by anybody. So quite a large amount of Torah scrolls, besides everything else, besides killed people, besides abused girls, besides wounded people, besides damaged buildings, and so on, so on, so on. Many synagogues and many Torah scrolls were unkoshered during the pogrom, and here started the ceremony, the moving to the cemetery that is rather far from here. The next station, the next site is logically the Jewish hospital, the former Jewish hospital. Today it's municipal hospital number 4, the ordinary public hospital for everybody. That's one of the oldest Jewish institutions in Moldova and Bessarabia in general. We even don't know when it was founded officially, probably even before 1812. So by 1903, by the pogrom, that was a large and known institution working both for Jewish and non-Jewish people, both from Kishinev and outside Kishinev, for the wider public. It was a large complex of buildings. You can see from here just a part of it. A part is under construction, a part is ruined, a part is still working. Some buildings were added after the war in the Soviet times. Some are, the oldest part is halfly ruined, damaged. So that's the place that has its serious role, plays its role in the pogrom story, as people, wounded people, were brought here. That's very understandable, that's obvious. Killed people, the bodies were brought here, that's obvious. Besides these two obvious points, Jews tried to hide here during the pogrom itself. So people who were not victims, not pogromed, but just scared to be pogromed, living all around here. It's all around us is a very Jewish neighborhood. So people came here with their families just to hide of these crazy mobs. And we have memoirs of the chief doctor of the Jewish hospital, Dr. Slutsky, Moshe Slutsky, who remembers the pogrom days, the pogrom hours, minute by minute, how he first heard about the pogrom, the rumors that something could be during the Passover and Easter, before the pogrom itself, and how did he hear for the first time about the beginning of the pogrom. He was at home, he lived in the other side of the historical Kishinev, and came here to be in his hospital, to be with the people who should be helped, who should be curated. You can see the historical photo. It's a pity, unfortunately, because of quarantine, we can't get inside and show you the today's image of the hospital. You can see just the historical photos and more modern photos of this particular moment. But you can compare the today's situation, the today's buildings with this historical image, the picture, the photo of people who were wounded during the pogrom and were taken next to the staff of the hospital, with the doctors, with the nurses, right inside the institution, inside the building. The last stop, the last station of our tour is the Jewish cemetery. That's the only one Jewish cemetery in Kishinev today. We had more. This one was much larger, so that was the last stop for those who were killed during the pogrom. I suppose all 49 victims of the pogrom were buried here altogether. Not all pogrom victims' graves are still recognizable today, but we have there inside the sector where they all are together. Let's go to the cemetery all together. This cemetery was founded in 1820s. It was not the first Jewish cemetery, as we know for sure that Jews lived here in Kishinev much earlier than in mid-19th century, than in early 19th century. Already in 18th century and maybe even earlier. We know that other Jewish cemeteries existed here in Kishinev of 17th, 18th century at least. And this one was much larger until it was halfly destroyed after 58, 59 in the Soviet period by the Soviet authorities. This cemetery remembers much and can tell much if you are ready to understand what it's telling. It has a sector of pogrom victims, it has a place for Magnitsa were desecrated during the pogrom. Torah scrolls were buried. Almost all or many of the gravestones, matzavot, have additional plaques for the members of family who perished during the World War II, and their bodies are nobody know where are. So that's the cemetery is always a sad place, a place of remembrance, and this one is a place of a historical remembrance for our sad history, for its special sad black pages like pogrom and Holocaust. At the other hand, we have here outstanding personalities like Yehiel Schreibman, the last Yiddish writer who was born in Vadul-Rashkov and lived in Romania, then in Moldova, in Kishinev, and died in Kishinev at the age of almost 100 years old, more than 95. A really interesting writer. We have here a grave of Levin, who used to be a producer of the Yiddish theater in the late 60s and was supposedly killed by the, let's say, KGB when he prepared to make Aliyah to Israel in the early 70s. We have here an outstanding Jewish doctor, Valovich, whose memory is still vivid in the remembrances of older generation of Kishinev inhabitants. We have here in general 25,000 graves of known or forgotten or just ordinary people interesting for lives, for their being here, for living here, for creating a face of this interesting and once flourishing Jewish community that is today very small, tiny, vivid, energetic, but much less in numbers and in its influence to the society in general than it was 100 years ago.